The rain seemed to come out of nowhere that afternoon. One moment, the sky was a clear blue canvas, and the next, dark clouds rolled in like an uninvited guest, bringing with them a downpour that sent people scurrying for cover. I remember standing at the edge of a crowded coffee shop, watching as the streets transformed into rivers of reflection, the city lights dancing on their surface like fireflies. It's funny how the most ordinary days can suddenly become extraordinary, how a simple rainstorm can change the course of your life forever. That's what happened to me, anyway. My name is Alex, and this is the story of how an umbrella and a rainstorm brought me face to face with the person who would change everything. I've always been the type to embrace spontaneity, to find joy in the unexpected turns life takes. My friends often describe me as optimistic to a fault, always looking for the silver lining even when the clouds seem their darkest. But beneath that cheerful exterior, I carried my own weights. Growing up in a small town where conformity was valued above all else had left its marks. I'd spent years trying to fit into boxes that were never designed for someone like me, someone who saw the world in vibrant colors when others insisted on black and white. By the time I moved to the city, I'd become adept at presenting the version of myself that others wanted to see, while keeping my true self hidden away, like a precious secret I wasn't sure anyone would want to discover. That rainy afternoon found me contemplating these very thoughts as I stood at the threshold of the coffee shop, watching the rain create a curtain between me and the rest of the world. I had no umbrella, no raincoat, nothing to shield me from the downpour. The sensible thing would have been to wait it out, to order another coffee and join the crowd of stranded patrons. But something about the rain called to me that day, like a siren song promising adventure. Perhaps it was the way it transformed the ordinary concrete jungle into something magical, or maybe it was simply my restless spirit seeking escape. Whatever the reason, I found myself stepping out into the deluge, instantly soaked but somehow feeling more alive than I had in months. The cold water trickled down my neck, plastering my clothes to my skin as I navigated the suddenly empty sidewalks. Most people had taken shelter, leaving the streets to those brave or foolish enough to challenge the weather. I walked without destination, simply enjoying the sensation of being completely present in the moment, until the intensity of the downpour forced me to seek refuge beneath the awning of a small art gallery. Water dripped from my hair, creating small puddles at my feet as I tried to wring some of the moisture from my sleeves. That's when I noticed him, a tall figure approaching through the rain, protected by a large black umbrella that seemed to create a private universe around him. There was something captivating about the way he moved, with purpose yet unhurried, as if he and the rain had come to some kind of understanding. As he drew closer, I could make out more details, dark hair curling slightly from the humidity, thoughtful eyes that seemed to take in everything around him, and a messenger bag slung across his chest that looked heavy with what I would later learn were sketchbooks. He noticed me standing there, drenched and probably looking rather pathetic, and his steps slowed. For a moment, we simply looked at each other, two strangers connected by nothing more than proximity and a rainstorm. Then he smiled, a hesitant, questioning sort of smile that somehow felt like an offering. "Caught without an umbrella?" he asked, his voice almost lost beneath the drumming of rain on the awning above us. I nodded, returning his smile with one of my own. I didn't think it would rain today, I admitted, though the truth was I hadn't bothered to check the forecast at all. The weather had other plans, apparently. He glanced up at the sky, which showed no signs of clearing anytime soon. "It looks like it's settling in for a while," he observed. Then, after a moment's hesitation, "Where are you headed?" I mean, if you'd like, we could share the umbrella." The offer caught me off guard. In a city where people typically went out of their way to avoid interaction with strangers, his gesture felt like a rare gift. I hesitated, not because I was wary of him, but because accepting meant admitting I had no particular destination in mind. "Actually, I was just walking," I confessed. "No real place to be." Instead of finding this strange, he nodded as if it made perfect sense. "Sometimes that's the best kind of journey," he said. "I'm Jamie, by the way." "Alex," I replied, and with that simple exchange, our paths converged. Stepping under the umbrella with Jamie created an instant intimacy that was both thrilling and slightly uncomfortable. We were forced to walk close together, our shoulders occasionally brushing as we navigated the rain-slicked sidewalks. The umbrella was large enough to shelter us both, but only if we remained within its carefully defined circle, like actors on a stage aware of their marks. I could smell the faint scent of paint and coffee that clung to him, could feel the warmth radiating from his body in contrast to the cool air around us. "So, you just wander the city in rainstorms?" Jamie asked, glancing at me with curiosity rather than judgment. Is that a regular hobby, or am I witnessing a special occasion? His question made me laugh, easing some of the tension between us. Not regularly, no. But there's something about rain that changes everything, don't you think? It's like seeing the world through different eyes. Jamie nodded thoughtfully. I know exactly what you mean. That's why I brought these. He patted his messenger bag. I'm an artist, or trying to be, anyway. There's something about the way light reflects off wet surfaces that I've been trying to capture. The city transforms in the rain. What kind of art do you make? I asked, genuinely interested. There was something so authentic about Jamie, as if he had never learned to hide parts of himself the way I had. Mostly watercolors and ink drawings, he explained, his face lighting up with passion. I focus on urban landscapes, trying to find beauty in the overlooked corners of the city, the places most people pass by without a second glance. I'd love to see your work sometime, I said, surprised by my own boldness. In response, Jamie stopped walking and, balancing the umbrella between us, reached into his bag to pull out a small sketchbook. Here, he said, handing it to me with a touch of vulnerability in his eyes. Be gentle with your criticism. These are just rough ideas. I carefully took the book, conscious of keeping it dry under our shared canopy. As I flipped through the pages, I was struck by Jamie's talent for capturing emotion through architecture and empty streets. His drawings weren't just buildings and alleyways. They were stories told through shadow and light, each one imbued with a sense of longing that resonated deeply with me. These are beautiful, I said softly, meaning every word. You see things that most people miss. A slight blush colored Jamie's cheeks at the compliment. Thank you. It's nice to meet someone who understands what I'm trying to do. He paused, then added, What about you? What do you do when you're not getting caught in rainstorms? I work at a bookstore, I told him. It's not as creative as being an artist, but I love being surrounded by stories all day. There's something magical about helping someone find exactly the right book at the right moment in their life. That sounds pretty creative to me, Jamie replied. You're connecting people with the words they need. That's its own kind of art. We continued walking, with no particular destination in mind, just two strangers sharing an umbrella and pieces of ourselves. The rain created a cocoon around us, insulating us from the usual rush and noise of the city. In that space, conversation flowed more easily than it had any right to between people who had just met. We talked about our favorite books and films, about the neighborhoods we loved most in the city, about the dreams we harbored but rarely spoke aloud. As we walked, I learned that Jamie had moved to the city 3 years ago from a small coastal town, drawn by the promise of artistic community and the freedom to be himself. I never quite fit in back home, he admitted, navigating us around a particularly large puddle. I was always the odd one out, too interested in art, too quiet too. He trailed off, and I understood what he wasn't saying. Too different, I finished for him. I know that feeling well. Where I'm from, different isn't exactly celebrated. Jamie glanced at me, a flash of recognition in his eyes. Exactly. It's like everyone has this script they're following, and if your lines don't match up, they don't know what to do with you. And heaven forbid you want to rewrite your character entirely, I added, thinking of my own journey to self-acceptance. Did you? Rewrite your character? Jamie asked, his voice gentle but direct. The question hung between us, heavy with implication. In my experience, this was usually the moment where I would deflect, change the subject, or offer a sanitized version of my truth. But something about Jamie, perhaps his openness, perhaps the strange intimacy created by our shared shelter, made me want to be honest. I'm still working on the revisions, I said carefully. For a long time, I tried to be the character everyone else wanted me to be. The good son, the straight friend, the guy who had it all figured out. It took me years to realize I was performing a role instead of living my life. Jamie nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. And now I'm trying to be authentic, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. I took a deep breath. I'm gay, and saying that out loud still feels like an act of courage sometimes, even though it shouldn't have to be. I understand, Jamie said softly. More than you know. The rain seemed to intensify around us, as if nature itself was acknowledging the weight of our exchange. We walked in silence for a moment, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like a space was opening between us, a space where we could both exist without pretense. You know what's strange? Jamie finally said. I've lived in this city for 3 years, surrounded by millions of people, and this is the most honest conversation I've had with anyone in months. There's something about sharing an umbrella with a stranger, I replied with a smile. It creates a different kind of space, like we're in our own little world. Is that what we are? Strangers? Jamie asked, And there was something in his voice, a vulnerability, a question, that made my heart beat faster. "I don't think we are anymore," I answered truthfully. "Not really." As we continued walking, the rain began to ease slightly, though the sky remained heavy with clouds. We found ourselves approaching a small park, its paths glistening with rain, the trees dripping with collected moisture. By mutual, unspoken agreement, we entered the park and made our way to a covered gazebo that offered a view of a small pond, its surface dancing with raindrops. Jamie closed the umbrella as we stepped under the shelter, shaking off the excess water. We sat on the dry bench inside the gazebo, suddenly aware of the absence of movement that had carried our conversation forward. Without the rhythm of walking to distract us, a new kind of tension emerged, not uncomfortable, but charged with possibility. "Can I tell you something?" Jamie asked, turning the umbrella in his hands. "Something I don't usually share with people I've just met?" "Of course," I replied, curious and touched by his trust. Jamie took a deep breath, his fingers tracing the curve of the umbrella handle. "When I was 16, I fell in love with my best friend. His name was Ethan, and he was everything to me. We spent every day together, shared every secret, except the biggest one, which was how I felt about him." I remained silent, giving him space to continue his story. "One night, after a party, we were walking home in the rain. We didn't have an umbrella, so we were just getting soaked, but we didn't care. We were laughing, talking about nothing important, and suddenly everything felt perfect. I thought, this is it. This is the moment." So I told him. I told him I was in love with him. Jamie's voice grew quieter. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, rain running down his face. Then he said he was sorry, but he didn't feel the same way. That he cared about me as a friend, but that was all. And then he walked away, leaving me standing there in the rain. "I'm sorry," I said, feeling the weight of his story. "That must have been devastating." "It was," Jamie admitted. "But that's not why I'm telling you this. The thing is, after that night, everything changed." Ethan tried to act normal, but there was always this awkwardness between us. Eventually, we drifted apart. I lost my best friend because I couldn't keep my feelings to myself. He looked up at me, his eyes reflecting a pain that time had dulled but not erased. Since then, I've been careful. So careful. I don't let myself get too close to people. I don't take risks with my heart. It seemed safer that way. But I prompted gently, sensing there was more to his story. "But then today, I saw you standing there in the rain, and something made me stop. Something made me offer to share my umbrella, even though every instinct was telling me to keep walking, to stay safe within my own little world." Jamie's fingers tightened around the umbrella handle. "And now here we are, and I'm telling you things I haven't told anyone in years, and I can't figure out why." The vulnerability in his confession touched something deep within me. In that moment, I recognized a kindred spirit, someone who, like me, had learned to guard his heart, to keep parts of himself hidden away from a world that hadn't always been kind. "Maybe," I suggested carefully, "it's because sometimes the right person comes along at exactly the right moment, and all those walls we build just don't seem as necessary anymore." Jamie looked at me for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "Is that what's happening here? Are you the right person, Alex?" The question hung between us, heavy with possibility. I didn't have an answer, not a definitive one. Anyway, we had only just met, after all. But there was something undeniable about the connection we'd formed in such a short time, something that felt significant in a way I couldn't quite articulate. "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but I'd like the chance to find out." A small smile formed on Jamie's lips, tentative but genuine. "I think I'd like that too." Outside our shelter, the rain had begun to ease, transforming from a downpour to a gentle drizzle. The park around us glistened, every surface reflecting light in a way that reminded me of Jamie's drawings, finding beauty in the aftermath of the storm. "It looks like the rain is letting up," I observed, feeling a strange reluctance at the thought of our encounter coming to an end. Jamie nodded, looking out at the clearing sky. "I should probably get going soon. I have a commission I need to work on tonight." He hesitated, then turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Before we go our separate ways, can I ask you something that might sound strange? After everything we've shared today, I think we're well past worrying about strange," I replied with a smile. Jamie held up the black umbrella that had been our shared shelter. "Would it be okay if I kept this moment? This umbrella, it's just an ordinary thing, but today it became something else. A beginning, maybe." The request caught me off guard, not because it seemed odd, but because of the depth of meaning Jamie had attached to what most would consider a mundane object. In his hands, the umbrella had become a symbol, a physical reminder of an unexpected connection formed in the rain. "The umbrella is yours," I pointed out gently. "You don't need my permission to keep it." "That's not what I mean," Jamie said, his voice soft but earnest. "I'm asking if I can keep what it represents. This moment. This connection. I'm asking if I can see you again, Alex." Understanding dawned, and with it came a warmth that spread through my chest. "Yes," I said simply. "I'd like that very much." Relief and joy flickered across Jamie's face. "Good. That's good." We exchanged phone numbers as the rain continued to lighten, the storm moving onto other parts of the city. When it was time to leave our shelter, Jamie opened the umbrella once more, though it was hardly necessary now. I understood the gesture for what it was, a desire to extend our shared space for just a little longer. We walked back toward the busier streets, where our paths would eventually diverge. The city was coming back to life around us, people emerging from their various shelters, the rhythm of urban life resuming as if it had never been interrupted. Yet something had changed, for me, at least. The world seemed different somehow, as if the rain had washed away a film from my eyes, allowing me to see everything more clearly. As we reached the intersection where we would part ways, Jamie turned to me. "Thank you for getting caught in the rain today," he said, his smile reaching his eyes. "And for sharing my umbrella." "Thank you for offering it," I replied. "Not everyone would have stopped." "I'm glad I did." Jamie hesitated, then leaned forward and placed a gentle kiss on my cheek. It was brief, almost tentative, but it sent a current of electricity through me that had nothing to do with the lingering raindrops. "I'll call you," he promised, stepping back. "Soon." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Jamie turned to walk away, the black umbrella held above him like a personal sky, I felt a sense of certainty settle over me. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. A story starting to unfold, one raindrop at a time. In the days that followed, I found myself thinking about Jamie constantly. About the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, about the passion in his voice when he spoke about his art, about the courage it took for him to share his past with a stranger. I thought about the umbrella, too, how something so ordinary had become extraordinary through the simple act of being shared. We did meet again, just as promised. First for coffee, then for dinner, then for long walks through the city where Jamie showed me the hidden corners that inspired his art. With each meeting, the connection between us deepened, growing from the seed planted during that rainstorm into something real and substantial. Months later, during another rainstorm, Jamie brought out the black umbrella again. We stood beneath it in front of the bookstore where I worked, rain dancing around us like it had on that first day. "Do you remember what I asked you?" he said, his eyes meeting mine. "About keeping this moment?" I nodded, remembering the vulnerability in his voice, the hope. "I've been keeping it," he said softly, "every day since then. And I want to keep collecting moments with you, Alex. As many as you're willing to share." In response, I reached up and pulled him close, our lips meeting beneath the shelter of the umbrella that had brought us together. Around us, the rain continued to fall, but we were safe within our shared space, two people who had found each other in the midst of a storm. They say that love often comes when you least expect it, appearing suddenly like a summer shower. For Jamie and me, it literally did. We shared an umbrella in the storm, and in doing so, found something neither of us had been looking for but both of us needed, a connection that felt like coming home, a love that grew from the simple act of making space for someone else beneath your shelter. And the umbrella? It hangs by our door now, ready for the next rainstorm, a constant reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with a single step into the rain. Total_char_count, 18,751.